And we are live. Hey, good evening, LinkedIn, everybody. Dave Wilson, the Ringer Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight I got a special guest in the house here, and I found Jen Buck on LinkedIn, and I reached out, and I tell you what, I really think you're going to enjoy Jen tonight. How's it going, Jen?
It's going great. I'm so happy to be here.
It's going to be a great, and Jen's really into my favorite subject is leadership, and like I said, you're really going to enjoy this. We'll be right back after this video. What do you think for $45?
Holy moly, that is fantastic.
I love it. Yeah, I was telling people, I always tell people, I've known this guy since COVID. He's from Bangladesh on that Fever app, whatever.
Yep.
Young kid, and we've known each other for 4 years. And from the beginning, I look back our videos, but now he knows what I'm thinking. And I gave him a list of words, everything within staffing, and you can see them.
Yep.
And I saw he did a video, something like that. And he turned that thing in there for $45, and it's just powerful.
It's killer. Yeah, well done. Bravo.
All right. Well, Jen, I'd like to introduce you. If you could, tell us about yourself, and then I'm going to get into a lot of great questions.
Good. Yes. So I am a professional speaker, and I've been doing this now for 26 years. I actually began my career in a startup. So the first decade of my career was spent working at Discover Card. So back when no one had ever heard of it, and they used to call me the Discovery Girl, and they thought I worked for the TV
channel. That's funny. I love it.
Yeah. So I worked there for the first 10 years of their inception, and I was a trainer. I was a tech trainer, a customer service trainer, eventually leadership development. And I have been for the past 26 years now working independently. I do keynotes all around the world, and my specialty is leadership impact. So that's my background. I do some writing each year and little podcasts and things like that. But
sure.
Really,
all right, let me. Yeah. Okay. So now I looked at all that. I was like, Walmart, Google, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. I could go on and on and on with your experience. Then the media side from ABC, CBS, NPR, Dr. Phil. I was like, what the heck? And then your 6 books. I'm like, all right, here we go. I said, wow. I said, everybody, you got to check her website out. But where in the heck did you get all the time?
Well, dude, it's 26 years. So, I'm an old lady here. And so I've been doing this a long time. And, it just is part of what comes with this job. And I love it so much. I literally eat, sleep, and breathe what I do, speaking and inspiring and all of that. So I don't know, maybe I'm sleep deprived.
I love the subject. And my father, he sent all 4 of us brothers, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines.
Cool.
At 2 months before we graduated, he said, get out, I'll wait. So he dropped us off. And I think from all of us being in all the careers that we love leadership, it developed us in that military and that 18 years old, I wish more younger generation would go in for at least 2, but it's really helped me through my career. My first question I really wanted to ask you is, what made you get into leadership? Because I watched on those videos and the passion is there. What made you think about leadership and change your life towards that?
I was 18 years old and I was a college student, and I was not doing well in school, and my mom and dad knew it. And so my mom had bought these tickets for a women's conference, and it was in California. It was the first of its kind. No one had ever heard of it. And so we went to this thing, and there were like 3,500 women there. And the keynote speaker was Joan Rivers.
Oh, wow.
And I know. And I remember not wanting to be there because I felt awkward, right? I'm 18.
Right.
And I started to realize that I actually said the words to my mom, whoever this old broad was
Right.
on stage, because I didn't know who she was. I wasn't watching late night TV or daytime TV. Like, I had no idea. I was 18 going to college. And I was so inspired and so moved by her. I cried, I laughed, I gave the first real standing ovation of my life. And that was the moment that it hit for me. I understood so clearly that that's what I was supposed to do. And all the different sort of, trails that I took along the way, from tech training to customer service and new hire and all those things,
Right.
I just knew in my bones that it was about leadership, because we are taking on the responsibility of
Right.
helping people enjoy their lives, enjoy their careers, enjoy their path more. And I just knew, I can't explain it. I'm super grateful that I got it at 18, but that's just the truth of it. It hit like a thunderbolt, and I have loved every day of my career.
Well, a lot of your videos are women empowered, like in business. I noticed that and I know you speak at other engagements also too, but is that the passion that came from that in speaking up for women and talking about leadership?
I think that just in general, I love inspiring women. Just, it's my experience, right? And
Right.
working in a startup and having that kind of experience and being in a company that was so incredibly focused
Right.
on development, it was a huge, huge sort of stepping stone. And for me, I don't think I would be who I am if I hadn't been invested in
Right.
at that level. And so I speak to mixed audiences 80% of the time, but about 20% of the time, they are all female audiences. And my heart just explodes. These are my people, if you will. And
That
I love helping women because someone did that for me.
for
I
you.
just would have been a screwed up kid ditching college and classes and all of that had
Right.
someone not just scooped me up. So, yeah.
I like how you said you wrote in one of the articles you were saying about when you just said about, let's just take it back, when you started out to now, and the different types, with Gen Zs, all different, even myself. I mean, I'm 58, so I mean, I'm old school, but yet I had to develop or evolve and change. How do you talk to people about that? Like, having to work with 21-year-old, 25, 50, 60, how do you juggle that and
This
mix it the way things are today?
This is the hottest topic in every interview that I do. I don't care who's interviewing me, what the industry is. Everybody wants to know, what do
Right.
we do with these multiple generations? And the truth is, we do have 5 that are working under one roof right now. And people think,
Right.
5? The veterans aren't still working. I have an uncle who's 80. He still works every single day, right?
Every
And
day.
so we do still have these older generation workers who are more traditional, who are more used to sort of conventional ways of running a business. But we've also got 2 generations behind that, the boomers and the Xers, who've
Right.
gotten used to that very consistent, expected, I think traditional path of, I get my review once a year. I get
Right.
the opportunity to meet with my boss and give them my expectations once a year. The younger 2 generations, the millennials and the Zs, they're very unconventional. These are your digital natives. They're used to things moving fast. They are very globally minded. They want to make a difference in the world. And so
Do
people
they know
are,
how? Do they know how? Like, or is it something that they need, need teaching, to learn?
I'll be honest with you. I think they know more than I do about how to make a difference. And I say that to you because I'm also the COO of an organization, a nonprofit organization. And do you know who our volunteers are? Millennials and Gen Z. They want to be out there making a difference in their community. They want to do something that matters. And so what we're seeing in the world right now is that social impact is becoming very
Right.
important. Companies are jumping on board and saying, all right, we've got to start investing in some of the community projects and filling, right, some of those gaps and fulfilling the needs. And we can do this. That matters to these younger generations. You talk about hiring, right? And
Right.
I have seen my friends that are recruiters having to come up with answers for, what is the company doing to contribute in terms of social impact? That's becoming a question that these younger generation workers are asking. But to answer your question in a nutshell, kindness, transparency, and building awareness around relationship and true feelings, not just being robots at work, really truly building relationships. That's what works across every generation, every one of them. And if we just keep it simple and basic, and if we just get back to the fundamentals, I think we'll do great with every generation.
When you do speaking engagements like that, and it is, let's just say mixed, the demographics and all that, do you see a difference? Like I can just imagine, I guess, because I haven't done it in front of people like that, but do you see them asking different types of questions? The older generation, I don't say it like that, but it's true, in my words, versus today,
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. The younger generations demand more of you as a speaker. A lot of the speakers out there right now are having to shift and adjust the way they've always done things.
Right.
Your younger generations don't just accept you speaking on stage anymore. They want engagement. They want interaction. They want to know it's real. And they want your facts to be very specific, right? Because they can Google everything while they're in the audience. So
right, where they're looking, that's true.
Yeah. And if you're inflating or over exaggerating something, they'll nail you on it, right? So I think it's making all of us better to have this really, really bright young generation. Again, digital nomads. They have had the internet at their fingers forever. I think it's great to see sort of this shift that they're bringing in, because it's making all of us work harder. I was just speaking with a group of incredibly brilliant people. They were all surgeons and the trainers of these surgeons, really bright people. And they're feeling the crunch because the younger surgeons, they have a different expectation of what a classroom should look like and feel like. The older surgeons are like, why are we changing the way we do things now? And they forget that everything is changing. We're not going back. This whole digital world and tech, it is where we're going. So it's hard for everybody really to figure out what's the right thing and the wrong thing. But I think the younger generations keep us on our toes. And yes, they're in every audience. And yes, they're just as inspired and excited and all of that. But they keep us much more, I think, focused on exactly what we're meaning to say, as opposed to overinflating something.
That must be interesting. And it must put you on your toes too, because I mean, you've had to evolve, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm sure you just learned so much from this generation here, because if not, they're not going to want to listen, or they're not going to want to learn, from that. One of the questions I also wanted to ask you, as I always ask, is what do you find? Let's just say you're at a company, and I'm not sure if they mix you up with a different type, like put management, and then other different teams for an entry level and all that, middle management. But is there like the same kind of issues that you see within companies with leadership that you talk about?
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to give me a little bit more in a second.
Like if you want to say, like, when you're talking to one group and you're talking to the other, do they always ask you the same questions, or what kind of questions do they ask you that you come upon over and over and over?
So I think that the biggest problem that always gets asked, no matter what year I'm speaking, what industry I'm speaking in, or what level I'm speaking to, it's always around communication. Always. Right. The way somebody talks, the way somebody doesn't speak, the look on their face, the communication problems. And I always jokingly say, you're all going to keep me very, very healthy and busy into my retirement, right? Because those things just don't go away. But I think that if I look at, what's happening from one industry to another, or one segment to another, we're all human beings. And so the issues around professional development tend to be very similar. And yet when I'm asked to come in, of course, I've got to do the deepest dive of my life to understand their difference. Yep. And I've got to understand their challenges and their pain spots and all of those things, and speak their language. Right. So it's never a canned thing that can go from one group to another, because you have to be able to relate the information into their language. But if I'm honest, we're human beings, and the problems are the same from industry.
The same.
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Samara says she does it so well. She says up on here, she just commented.
Oh, thank you for that. I know exactly who she is. She's a former client of mine.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
All right. Love it. Love it. The one thing that I always get talk about is having hard conversations in leadership. And I know things go negative all the time and that gets a lot more attention, but I hear it over and over. And I'm not going to say I made those mistakes back in the 90s and going through my pain points of learning, because I was starting out from the military, then supervisor and management and manufacturing, going on and on. But I didn't have anybody teaching me back then, really. Yeah. And what I've learned is, wow, I go after the problem now. Like, I'll nip it in the bud. I'll talk to somebody, because if you don't, that can really, really take a toll on you.
Absolutely.
On that part, for that. And just also learning myself, making those mistakes. And you talk about mentorship. I saw that in here, and you talk about how important is that. I don't think we do it enough of it today.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you this. I think another hot button things that are starting to be talked about, predominantly because of what's going on in our country right now with politics. People are very divided. Positive conflict is actually something, or productive conflict is another name for it, is actually a very hot topic right now. So you've got your finger on the pulse. Yeah. Because it's hard to do, and it's hard to separate.
So positive conflict.
Yeah. There's a difference between both. And I think that healthy environments actually create that psychological safety where people know that even because my beliefs are different, or even because I might not hold the same position as you, you have created such a safety net of trust that I know I can voice my opinion, right? The last thing you want is a team of yes men or yes women that never tell you what's really going on. And so there is a movement around productive or positive conflict and how to create a culture of it. So I did want to say that. Now, you asked me another question and I got off track. And so what was the other part of what you were asking?
No, the other part was, I was just saying about how evolving as I learned and made those mistakes. Didn't have people telling me, but the mentorship is, you said in there, and when that caught my eye, because I don't hear that enough.
Yeah.
I really believe, to me, that's kind of old school. I always say it like that, because that's what we had. That's all you had.
Yeah.
You had somebody teaching you. Like, I always had a manager I could go to and just ask those questions. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I think if a lot more leaders would say, listen, at my age, I'm okay with saying, what do I do? Because with the new generation, everything now, I don't even know what to say sometimes.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, the younger generation, and again, when I say younger generations, I'm talking about Z and millennials. So that goes from basically 20 up to early 40s. Okay.
Right.
So those younger generations have been raised differently than you and I. You and I were raised, I'm 54. We were raised with going out and finding a mentor, right? The younger generation was raised with this idea that people will want to mentor you. They'll want to help you. So they're hungry for it. Don't forget, those two generations were also raised with very healthy grandparents for a long time into their life and great grandparents. So they're used to that mentorship relationship that's very, very natural and ingrained. And so when they get into the workplace, they absolutely expect mentorship. So that is putting another demand on some of the older, leaders that are out there. But mentorship is everything, right? When we have an established routine and system in place to help people get to the next level, that is exactly what makes our workplace so strong, so viable, in terms of longevity, that makes it so, really duplicable if we have all these people going through this process. And so it's hugely important, not done enough. But I will say this, there's something out there called ERGs, these employee resource groups, and they are a fabulous way to create really, I would say, informal mentorships that happen within like groups. So if we all are of, let's just say a certain nationality, or we are from a certain social group, we are from whatever it is, you've got these ERGs that will come together once a month. And often what happens in those spaces are very, very informal mentoring and support that helps people in that process. But we need more of it. We need a lot of it. It's mentoring is not only one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my career, but being mentored is the single most important thing that got me moving in my career. So, I mean, it's just good versus good, right?
Right. And that's the reason why when I like it for like new employees, especially in a skill set, to where I believe, when, let's say, terminations come upon, those hard conversations you don't want to have, you think you're just going to end them and it's going to go away. It never goes away. It stays. But I feel that if you didn't give those tools to those employees and you didn't offer, I believe that mentorship in that beginning and teaching that word, again, I don't hear it enough, but if I would like to say, listen, this is your mentor, this is one you want to go to if you're having trouble. I just think that plays a big part that we're missing.
Yeah. And I think that the key is that there's a lack of transparency in the workplace. Right. And when you have a mentor, it's an agreement that we're going to be transparent with one another. I'm going to ask you tough questions. I'm going to tell you my fears. We're going to have this exchange that's extraordinarily raw. And that's the only way that you're really, truly working in a space that's going to move you forward, right? No one needs, I said this earlier, a yes man. Nobody needs someone that's not going to be committed. So it's transparency that's needed. And here's the truth. A lot of people are afraid to be transparent in the workplace. They're afraid of that, right? And so
you said that a couple times and I was like,
that's a part
that is so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
And I just wish some people would be more honest because, again, it just makes you feel better.
Yeah.
And you can just, maybe it's because I've been through it all, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it just eats you.
Yeah.
One of the things I like what you said on one of your things, I like you say your attitude is your superpower.
Yes.
I like how you said that. And what do you mean by that?
Well, I get asked all the time that, where does your energy come from? You must be exhausted. Right. How do you do all of this? Kind of like you did with me, right? And here's the thing. I am human and I have bad attitudes at times. Yesterday, I just had one, as a matter of fact. But I say this because I have to be super, super aware of what I'm putting out. And what I'm giving out is certainly going to come back. So if I've got a bad attitude, my husband, let's just say, is going to be defensive, right? What's wrong with you? Whatever it might be. And so what I have found for me, I think I am naturally more energetic than most. I do believe that. I do think that I have sort of some natural ingrained thing happening. And I can't answer for that. But I can tell you that even when I get in a funk and even when I get in a space where I'm just pissed at everything, I switch gears really fast. And I say that not to make it sound chaotic, but I don't like feeling terrible. I don't like feeling mad. I don't like feeling angry. And so when I say your attitude is your superpower, I mean, it pulls you out of the deep spaces. And oh, by the way, this is God's joke on the motivational speaker. My husband suffers from depression. So I can't attitude him, put your smile or your frown upside down. I can't attitude him out of depression, clinical depression. I can't, right? But here's the thing I will say. For me, when I'm in a balanced space, when I'm, in my everyday life, my attitude opens so many doors for me because I'm open, I'm, transparent. I've got a lot of facial expressions. I've got this crazy energy, whatever it is.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to be upset. You're not supposed to be. I mean, when you look at your website and all your videos, I'm like, no, that's the way you got to be. That's the way you got to be.
And it's naturally who I am. But I believe that when we decide to make a choice that I'm sick of being ticked off or I'm sick of being resentful, I'm sick of being sad, I'm sick of this, it doesn't feel good. When you start to finally harness that and say, you know what, this is it. This is my one go round. I'm doing it my way. And when you start to harness that and decide I can be ticked, but it doesn't rule me and I'm not going to stay here long. I believe that's a superpower. And I know it gets me into rooms that, frankly, sometimes I just shake my head like, how in the world did I get here? But I know it's because I got all this stuff happening, right? And people are wondering, what is going on with her? What's this energy? What's this happiness? What's this expressiveness? And I just believe that it's, if I could bottle it and sell it, I would.
Bottle and sell it, you would. And that, I like to say, and I've learned trigger points for me because I had gone to counsel one time and I kept saying, and she kept saying those trigger points, turn it around.
Yes.
What makes Dave get mad? And I'll be like, oh, when I hear that, I have to switch. Yeah. Because there again, and I've learned by doing that, it has helped me because what triggers you and gets you angry, even at work, you have to say to yourself, all right, I say breathe. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit how you talk about communication and, all that also. But another thing that you said and I've heard this one other time, is I like how you said to create your own tribe,
Hmm.
and you want those descendants. I, I had to say that over and over, like, create your tribe. I get it. And you want the descendants.
Yeah.
How
Of
did
those
you think of
women.
that? What did you think about that? Yeah.
So here's what the phrase is that, ultimately what I was saying is that I want to create this squad of women that
Right.
are powerhouses. And I had been speaking specifically about, in that same video, I think, that I'm saying, the names of all of these
Yep.
women who have changed the world over time. And I said, I want the descendants of those women in my circle.
Yep.
I want those women who know who they are and what that power is that just runs through their veins from their grandparents and great grandparents or whatever it is. And I love when anybody, male or
Nice.
female, can step into their legacy and own that. I'm not saying that we should fake how we feel when,
Right.
like I said earlier, turn that frown upside down doesn't always work. But I will say this, that when you feel that fuel that comes from the legacy that's been left before you and the legacy
Right.
that you're going to leave, I think there's power in that. And I'm very selective about who I have in my inner circle. And I can
Right.
absolutely tell you that these are, and I'm thinking women in particular, these are women who understand their descendants. They understand the legacy. They understand what they're leaving for their kids. They are fueled by it. And so that's what I meant in that.
Yeah, it was just, when I heard somebody speak about that before, about your tribe and getting people that you really are in your circle, that you don't want that negativity. Listen, I try to stay away from those people. I can't take it, when somebody's negative all the time. And I think as I'm getting older, I just don't want nothing to do with that. Please. I can't listen to that. Change your mind, do something, leave, quit, do something, just to exercise that. And I get that. But I just found that interesting. And then the other one that I like is you talk about, you were like a pit bull in these videos. I was telling, if you get a chance, everybody, go on the video on the website and you're going to see Jen up there. She's like a pit bull, but you talked about be brave, step up your own strengths, power, and space, and then create spaces for those not heard. That's what caught me when I said create space for those not heard.
Yep.
I didn't. Go ahead. No, it's yours. It's yours.
Listen, I love the underdogs because they always end up being the superstars, right? And I love the ones that have been counted out or overlooked. I love them. And when I talk about people finding their strength, it's about understanding that they're in charge of this, right? And so when I talk specifically about underdogs, it really is about them finding, again, that legacy, finding that chain that's pulling them one way or another. And whether it's the triggers that they've been believing in, like you said a moment ago, right? Or setting up a new set of standards and rules and goals for their life. The truth is, I believe that anyone, and I am absolutely dyed in the wool on this. I believe that anyone can get where they want to go. Anyone. I don't care if it's, I've got a cousin who wrote, directed, and actually was in a film. This is someone in New Mexico who, my gosh, what do you mean you want to be a director and a writer and a producer and all these things? She's doing it. There's no connection. There's no silver spoon. There's no nothing, but she wanted to do it. So I say this because I don't believe in limitations. And the reason that most people are where they're at and dissatisfied is because they believe the triggers. They believe the limitations, right? And I'm someone that just doesn't. I met a coach, my track coach from all 4 years in high school. And I met up with him again. And he said, Jenny, I will never forget you because you are the only kid I knew that would consistently run through walls. I've never forgotten that. Run through walls because that's who I am. You say I can't, watch me, and it's an audacity. I get that, but it's also just what I believe. I get one go round, man. That's it. And I'm going to make this a really fun ride. And I live that every day.
When you talk to groups and you bring up subjects like this, we just brought up about tribes, about descendants, about create those space. I noticed, does the crowd, do they go quiet? Like, do they focus of what you're saying? Because when I was watching your video, you think you're saying those words are coming right off. I'm like, oh, I can relate to that. I can relate. And I was wondering, does it get quiet? Is everybody just like, can you feel that in
Yeah.
your crowd when you're talking to them.
For sure. For sure. Samira would tell you, I'm big on lots of energy and a lot of fun and a lot of
Right.
laughter. Those things are important, but I'm also a really deep thinker and a deep soul. And I see myself as an educator,
Right.
and I don't see myself as an entertainer. Those are things they get because I've got all this weird energy,
Right.
but I see myself as an educator and I see myself as a messenger. And so when I say these things and I'm starting to push some of the boundaries to get people
Right.
to think a little deeper, they do get quiet. They do, because they get it.
Yeah.
And that's why when I'm done, I don't think I've ever done a presentation, keynote, whatever it is, where
Right.
people haven't come up, at least one, but usually multiple, coming up crying after, because you push into truth and people
Yep.
feel it and they know.
Yeah, and that's what I felt when I was watching it, because a lot of this stuff, as you can tell, I'm reading these words, but they're true. Here you put the art of being assertive. What do you mean by mistake of being aggressive communication or assertive communication?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a difference, right? So think back to the way we were raised. Aggressiveness was always praised. Think about your sports. Think about your military
Right.
time. I can remember being told to be more aggressive. The problem is in the workplace, it doesn't translate. So
That's what I figured. Okay.
I'm going to guess that when you were going from the military into the workplace, there was a shift you had to make in your brain that you couldn't be as direct as you used to be. You couldn't be
Yep.
as abrupt and short in answers as
All
you
I kept saying was,
programmed.
I can't believe they're talking like that to their boss.
Yeah.
Or I was just like, whoa. And you're right. You had to switch. I was like, wait a minute. This place is dirty, filthy. I was like, oh my God. And that was, you're right. You're right there.
Yeah. So aggressive communication is in the workplace and
Right.
frankly in relationships is akin to threat, humiliation, making people feel afraid on some level, unstable, uneasy. Assertive communication is me saying to you, that's not going to work.
Okay.
Now, if I was going to go aggressive, I would throw in lots of expletives. I'd take a step closer. I'd probably point and I'd lean really close to you and say,
Right.
who do you think you are? Do you really think this is going to bleeping work?
And
right?
that's what I was through those years ago.
Mhm.
That's the way it was. It was they were right in your face.
Yeah.
Compared to now, you just can't.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's not kind. I don't know why anybody would be okay with that, even in a marriage, right?
No, no.
We should never accept someone being aggressive. But again, it works in certain places, like
Right.
on a field or on a team, or you know what I mean? In the military, it works and it's perfect. But when we get into the workplace or even into adult relationships, even parenting children, we've got to be careful, right?
You gotta be
Because
careful on
you're
that.
sensitive beings. Yeah.
That's what I thought. You also talk about empathy. Can you teach empathy? You know what I mean? Let's just say you bring that subject up. How do you even do something like that and explain? Because again, I always keep saying, going back years ago, but these were not words that I even heard of then. I didn't even know what that was.
Sure.
Now I know it's because everybody's evolved and that's what it is, but can you teach it?
So I can teach someone how to use empathy, but I
Right.
can't teach someone to be empathetic. Because if someone doesn't feel, they don't feel. If someone doesn't care, they don't care. But they
Okay.
can still not care or feel and say the right words in the moment. So I'm going to give you an example of this. My husband's very, very empathetic, but he's an engineer.
Right.
So he's a fixer. That's where his brain goes always first. And the very first 15 years ago, the very first fight we ever had was me coming home, highly emotional, coming home and being upset about a client and whatever had gone on. And I'd been stuck in traffic. And I was so upset that I came home in tears. And he immediately went into fix-it mode. And I remember pushing him away and saying, empathy first. Give me empathy first. And I stormed off into the bedroom. And a couple minutes later, he was knocking on the door. And he opened the door and he said, what did I do? Because in his brain, he was doing the perfect thing by trying to solve the problem, right?
Solve the problem.
Now, he definitely cares. He's definitely a lover and all of those things. But the truth is, his brain was doing what it's wired to do, which is fix, right?
Fix. Okay.
Solve. And so I can teach people how to display empathy in any circumstance.
Right.
And they can do it beautifully. But can I teach someone to care? No. Can I rewire someone's brain? No. But I'll tell you this, after 15 years with my husband, it's empathy first every time. And
Right.
we've taught our daughter empathy first, empathy first.
Empathy first. I like that. I have 2 LinkedIn users. I'm not sure if I don't see their names for some reason, but this one says, even as an athletic coach, I was mindful of this, they commented. And then empathy
Cool.
is an art of the heart,
Yeah,
But
it is.
I could see what he's saying here. Even
Yeah.
as an athletic coach, that makes total sense, because that would be somewhat in your face a little bit more to get
Yeah.
results. I was always taught back in the 90s, it was always taught that's how you got results.
Mhm.
Okay, you had a manager that was really just like that. He was in their face, but you know what? He got results.
Yeah.
You got somebody in there that came in that just didn't show that type of work. They either got ran over, basically like, pushed over. But I know it's wrong now.
It is wrong. It is wrong.
It's
And
very wrong.
it doesn't have any sustainability. And a great coach, so let me speak to you out there. A great coach knows that in order to get that team to perform, they have to know and trust you, right? And they
Right.
have to know that you care about them. And so great coaches know how to push a player, but why would they ever strike fear in a player, right? But what
Right.
they do want is for that player to tap into their aggression, to do more than they've ever done. But see, that's exactly where it gets confusing, right? So
Right.
do I speak aggressively to you, or do I just display aggression in my work? And then we go from being on a field to in the workplace, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work to be scaring people into submission so that they'll do what you do, because I'll do it for now just because I'm afraid of you. But eventually I'm going to take 2 middle fingers and throw them in the air and say, I'm
Right.
done. Right. And
You're
so there's a time limit on aggressiveness. And thankfully, the workplace knows this, right? We
Right.
all know this. We don't have that at the level you and I had it at in the 90s. In the 90s,
Right.
it was absolutely a part of our leadership expectation.
Yeah.
It is absolutely not acceptable anymore. And we all know that, right? Because it just doesn't create long-term success.
The LinkedIn user says here, that was Danny Smith Mathis, and I'm a female.
Oh, Danny.
Oh, you know,
Hi.
okay.
Yes.
For some reason, I can't see their name. It just says LinkedIn user tonight. I'm not sure why it's saying that, but that was a question there. Another thing, I got a couple more questions for you here.
Oh.
That what is company culture for you now versus, I keep saying back then, but now, never heard of company culture, never work-life balance. Work-life balance during COVID. I think that just changed everybody's. But
Yeah.
what do you feel about that now? Company culture and work-life balance.
Everybody's looking to find a culture where people are committed, they feel safe, they know that the company has their best interest. There is truly a culture of open door policy where people can be comfortable speaking their mind, going to, the leaders and whatnot. But the truth is that when we look at culture, it doesn't just happen because you're a cool guy or a cool girl sitting in that leadership role.
Yep.
It doesn't just happen because you give Hershey bars every Friday, right? I mean, I had a boss one time who did that. And the thing is, I hated Hershey bars. So for a year, I had to give Hershey bars on Fridays, and I'd give them to my colleague. Like, this does not motivate me, right? So here's the deal. You've got to get to know your people, and you've got to create an environment that supports their desires and their needs. We're on LinkedIn. Let's talk about what they do at LinkedIn, right? You've got Jeff Weiner, who spends 90 minutes a day going around the office and engaging with his people to see how he can support their desires, right? Their, legitimate businesses outside of LinkedIn, their pet projects, 90 minutes a day. That creates a culture where you really understand what matters most.
I like that. I've never heard it like that before, said like that.
Yeah.
And that does make a lot of sense, because that makes you feel differently.
That's right. Right. And so I think it's important as leaders that we do a real assessment, a real clear, honest assessment, and figure out what is our culture? What are we doing here? Right. If we're all just coming in and twice a year we have some kind of picnic or holiday party, is it really a culture? Is it really something that people are devoted to? We don't talk about devotion and love in the workplace, but we're starting to. Why? Because people need to be devoted to what's going on, and they need to know their leaders devoted to them. And things are shifting, and it's 100% because of the younger generation, and it's 100% great. And I can tell you, as
Right.
a generation worker, it's 100% great. But it does take a good hard look in the mirror to say, okay, what am I doing every day? What am I
Every
committed
day.
to every week? What do we as an org do once a month, once a quarter? What are we doing that is systematic in supporting a culture that really creates joy, commitment, support,
That makes
safety?
total sense. Safety,
Yeah.
I even like that. Let's see. Let's see. Danny Smith says again. She said that is true. I coach 200 athletes, and they trust me. It's still many of them. I
I
love
bet.
it.
Danny
You
Smith
know,
Mathis is a rock star human being. She's one of my favorites.
awesome.
Yeah.
The conversations that we talked about. Why you talked about one-on-ones? Why are they important, and why do you think companies don't? You talk also about different policies, the same thing, but they don't do it. Like a certain percentage only does, like the company culture, or even one-on-ones. They might say, but only 8% of companies do that.
Yeah.
Why is it hard for them to do the one-on-ones? Why, and to see the benefits of
Yeah.
one-on-ones? I have a boss now that does that every week.
It's the best.
And I got to tell you what, I've never had that in my life in career.
It's the
Never.
very best. It's the very
Only
best.
10 minutes. It's only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
10,
That's all it needs to be, right? It's a check-in.
yes, it's perfect.
And the best one-on-ones are focused on the employee. So what can I do for you? How can I be of service to you? How can I support what you're working on? How's it going? What don't I know? How can I do my best right now to give you what you need, in terms of access or supplies or whatever it is. And so that's how they should feel. And I was just out at a client about 2 weeks ago, and the leaders, some of them are not doing one-on-ones that are mandated because they're intimidated by the people that work for them. So
but why do you think that? Is it come down to nervousness again about having those simple conversations?
Yeah. I mean, look, some people, we've got so many elements that can possibly be sort of, I guess, influencing what's going on. It could be that they're introverted, not extroverted. It could be that there's a history with this person. It could be that you're talking about someone who is more docile in their personality and having to coach someone who is more aggressive in theirs. It could be a changing of leadership. They're new into their role. This person's been there forever. Who knows, right? It could be a lot of things. But healthy work environments have those weekly one-on-ones. That's just a check-in, 10 minutes, saying, how you doing? How can I support you? And I know that one of the best leaders I ever had, every single time we would check in, we would do once a week, 10 minutes, 5 to 10, whatever I needed. But once a month, what would happen is that I had my goals that had been broken down into 11 parts. So that, let's just say I started my annual goals, and by November, I should be done. So what we had done together is we actually broke them down. By February, I should be here. By March, I should be here. So I knew exactly that by November, I was going to have every goal completed, no stress for the last month. And if I wasn't all the way there, I still had a month, right, to make sure I got there. I loved it. I am not structured that way. I loved it. I flourished. And you know what else I knew when it came time for my review? I knew I was going to be exceeding. We'd already worked that out, right?
You already had it.
I already knew what my raise was going to be. I knew what my income would be for the next year. So I say this in that there are some very structured one-on-ones, but the ones I prefer are actually kind of loose. It's just us coming together. How can I serve you? How can I be of support to what you're working on and doing?
I love that. And then we had, let's see, Samara says, I stop what I'm doing and I do walkabouts throughout the office to ensure the team is okay. One by one, I will ask and see what I can do for them to assist. I wear my heart on my sleeve and they feel that. And she says, I call it a pulse check. I love it.
She's exactly right. Think about this. So she is a great example of a leader that leads with heart. Like, she's incredible and I adore her. And I worked actually with her organization for about 10 years as their outside trainer. But I will say this, that we learn a lot from looking at great leaders, right? And great leaders are always taking temperature checks. And Jack Welch of GE was sort of the king of
I read his book on my honeymoon.
You got it. So he knew the name.
I read it. I love it.
And baseball stats and health and anniversaries and birthdays of family members. He knew everything. And
It was amazing, that guy. He was amazing.
check in.
Yep.
And he was also known as Iron Jack because he held your feet to the fire.
Yep.
And if you didn't meet your expectation, agreed upon expectation, you were gone. So there's that. But then we can look at the greats, but we can also look at what's been done in the restaurant industry forever. Think about touching tables. Anytime you go out to a restaurant, when you go to a nice restaurant,
Right.
the maitre d' or the manager will come over and say, "How are things tonight?" "Great. Can I get you anything?" "All right. Have a great evening." It's a temperature check. So when she talks about, a pulse check, she's exactly spot on. It's what people
That's right
need.
there.
We crave it.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then you had said the right word, and that's right on my list here, is the expectations. I feel, again, that companies need to do more of. And the reason is because I guarantee I could go into some companies and ask, hey, what's expected of you? What are you supposed to do every day? What's going on? And a lot of them don't know. And the importance of that. And I love it because it keeps you in check.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, cause you shouldn't have anything to worry about or anything like that, because your expectations. And again, I'm not sure why some leaders don't like to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. Because hoarding is power. So
Ooh, I
when
like
I
that one. All right.
hoard
I like
information, when I can
Okay.
hoard information or I can hoard direction,
that. Right.
who maintains the power? And
You're
so
right.
that's an ego problem, right? And we're getting really intolerant of egos in the workplace. This is a conversation that's being had, and
Over and over.
yeah, and so we're getting intolerant of the hoarding and the power and the ego. I mean, that's just it, and it's not working anymore. It certainly doesn't work on the two younger generations in the workplace because they haven't been raised to think that's normal. Xers, boomers, veterans have been raised under that sort of
Right.
iron thumb. But the younger people are like, whoa, what are you doing? And why do you think this is okay? Right? And it's not.
I know. They always come up with something. I always say, I've never, okay, you got me.
Yep.
And it drives me crazy. One of the most important things I wanted to talk to you about tonight is I kept going over and over and over how you were saying about emotional intelligence, collaboration, teamwork, your soft skills. Emotional intelligence, why is that important today? I don't think some leaders even know what that is.
Yeah. So back in the 90s, there was a book that came out called Emotional Intelligence in the Workplace.
Right.
And it was actually an idea that was created back in the late 60s, early 70s, but they didn't have, this Daniel Goleman, who brought it out in the 90s, had the marketing behind it and really made
Right.
it go crazy. But emotional intelligence is really about 4 parts. It's about self-awareness. How am I feeling? How am I doing? Really being honest with myself in the moment,
Right.
self-awareness, and social awareness. And social awareness, you asked me, can I teach empathy? I can't teach empathy, but I can teach you how to be empathetic, right? I can teach you how
Right.
to act with empathy. So social awareness, so one side is me, how am I feeling? But social awareness is you. Am I noticing anything different about your energy? Did I notice anything different about your pace or timing or words in your speech?
Right.
Is anything happening that's out of character for you? And so when I notice that, I can then say, how you doing? Are you okay? You want to go for a walk? Let's
That
go get a
makes
Coke.
sense.
That's acting from a space of empathy, right? Because I'm paying attention. So self-awareness, social awareness. The other part of this has to do with management. So the first part of it, again, like before, was
Right.
self. So self-management is me not losing my cool, not getting flippant and sarcastic, not being, I don't know, hoarding or resentful or retaliatory, right?
Right.
And so it's me controlling me and always making sure that my attitude is my superpower, right? That I
Right.
am making a choice every day to come as my best self. And so self-management is huge. But here's the other side of it, though. You've got social management.
See,
So
that's-
yeah, I can notice that you don't look the same as normal. I can notice that something's off about you, and it has been for a few days. But if I haven't built trust with you, if there's not psychological safety that's been sort of ingrained
Right.
in our relationship, you may not want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. The problem
that's
is
what I was thinking when you said
that's
that.
bad leadership. Yeah.
But I think is like, as you're saying it, I'm thinking to myself is I think if you have that trust with your boss,
Yeah.
that trust with your manager, like, okay, I'm not going to talk about that, and not with him or not with her, but somebody else could step in there, and it could be just like instant,
Yeah.
So that's what I was curious, because to me, I was like, all right, emotional intelligence. I'm over and over reading it, and I'm thinking, what the heck?
Yeah.
And the collaboration and teamwork and the soft skills. You talked about soft skills. Is that, you consider that a soft skill?
Of course. Yeah. Soft skills have to do with anything that's relationship oriented, for sure. And so I can't teach you to feel, but I can teach you, again, how to act with empathy.
Right.
And so anything that has to do with relationship building, anything that has to do with making sure that the culture is healthy, that the
Right.
team feels safe, those are all under the umbrella of soft skills. Yeah.
Soft skills. Samara says, if you are tuned in with your team, as soon as they walk through the door, I know what kind of day they're going to have. I love it.
Absolutely. And she does.
That is so true, boy.
Yep, she does.
That is so true. Jen, I want to thank you so much. I'll tell you, 50 minutes. Wow, I love it. And I'll tell you what, of all these, now you talked about trees. This is all from your website. All right.
My favorite quote. I know where you're going.
And I'm looking over here. I didn't even get to hit half of it all, and I'm like, wow, but the experience that you have. And I guess sometimes you don't realize when somebody watches your video, how they can, say, wow, that she's right. Oh, we got one more comment here.
Cool.
Whoa, this is a big one. If a company really cares about its employees, they should create the corporate resources division. Human resources is really how the company will use its employees as resources like their worker bees. And this is set up to dismiss those who aren't like docile slaves. When that happens, therein the clear, real shift in the soul of corporate America, the workplace company design, division like corporate resources for employees to have at their disposal. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
woo,
look,
that's a lot, huh?
I'm gonna say this. I'm not sure that I'm exactly right on with what was said because I'm having to think and talk and all of that,
Yeah.
But I will say this. If what I just heard was that companies need to be employee focused, if they really expect to have a successful company, they are dead on. Dead on. Dead on. Yep.
That makes total sense. I like that.
Yeah.
And then somebody says, I love this. You two are great. Oh, thank you. I don't know who said that word, but they love it.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, you got to check out your website and then naturally just learn a little about Jen in the time frame. And I love it. I mean, I learned a lot off of just talking to you and asking these questions, because I say it again, you got to evolve. You got to change.
Yeah.
And I know I do every day. I'm like, all right, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
How can I get through to this person, or how I can do it? And I wish more companies would have speakers come in, because it does help. When I was on Johnson & Johnson, wow, every week we had people coming in. You could really just learn the stories that people would tell. But we didn't have the internet. So that's, to me, I mean, that one-on-one, and when they would come in, you felt really important when the company had somebody come in and they made that kind of investment. That was a big investment back then.
Yeah. And Johnson & Johnson's one of my former clients. So
they were great. Yeah. We had great food all the time and lunches. And, oh my God. But I want to take a minute here and just give it back to you and talk to you about who you are, what you do, and then we're going to end the show.
Will do. All right. Well, before I actually sort of give you the deets, I will say this. One of the things that I constantly tell leaders, and Samara could probably attest for this, that I'm always encouraging leaders who are on this journey to create a positive culture, to create that psychological safety, to build the relationships, to start tapping into emotional intelligence. Bring 5 beans with you to work tomorrow. 5 beans. Now, I don't care if you work from home. I don't care if you're in an office. 5 beans. They can be lima beans. They can be coffee beans. Actually, coffee beans kind of crumble, but beans are beans, right? Bring 5 beans and commit to yourself that before you leave that office that day or turn off your computer that day, you will have reached over the line to 5 different people just to say a word of thanks, a word of gratitude, a complimentary, comment about what they've done or how they've helped you, just to show them that you care. If you want to start changing the temperature of your organization, you've got to be the first to move as the leader. And so 5 beans. And if you are at the end of the day looking at your beans and you realize from one pocket to the other, you've still got 1 bean left, then you're not leaving. Make it a commitment to yourself that you're going to send that email right then and tell them, I appreciate you. And that leads into my favorite phrase, which is that we as leaders are planting seeds. And great leaders plant seeds that will eventually turn into trees under whose shade they will probably never sit. So in other words, everything I plant today chances are I'll have moved on, they'll have moved on, but you are part of this big, beautiful, wonderful tree that's being, grown. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that I have to see everything to fruition, right? Or that I'll have the privilege to see them when they are in their glory. But every day I'm planting seeds, and every day I'm tending to my bush, right? Or my tree, or my small little, employee with me. Someone
Right.
who's working for me has got to be tended to and taken care of and cared about. So that's where all of that sort of comes together. But 5 beans, I challenge you to do that. And everybody can find me sort of at any social media spot, pretty much, at Jen Buck Speaks. So Jen Buck Speaks is the handle on everything. And Jen, me, Buck, speaks, because I'm a speaker. And even my website's jenbuckspeaks.com. So that's where people can find me.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm going to talk to you right back after this video again and say thank you. So good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.